Hello, viewers of the Twoniversals. I, the hater, have infiltrated this channel so that I can do a ranking of Mr. Nicholas Payne's Earth Agent series. Earth Agents, what an abysmal series! So, today, I'll be ranking every single terrible episode from this abysmal series, from worst to least worst. Surprisingly, there's the least worst ones. Maybe even okay ones. But we'll see as we go through all 16 episodes in the ranking. Kill my fucking titles! So for those who are blissfully unaware, Earth Agents is a contemporary Earth comedy sci-fi action-adventure internet miniseries set in the present day, made by and starring Nicholas Payne, one of the awful members of these terrible Universals and Twoniversals YouTube channels. And these short films rank amongst some of the absolute worst of the terrible Doctor Who fan film series. They don't even feel like Doctor Who fan films anymore. They feel like their own thing now. They come so far from being Doctor Who fan films when they initially started out to kind of being kind of like fan films of film and media in general. The occasional piece of literature as well. So today I shall be ranking all 16 episodes of this abysmal series as of today, April the 1st, 2022. At time of this video going out, there is one episode in production, the 17th episode, A Christmas Carol for Ebenezer Scrooge, which is sounding like it's going to be one of the lesser worst ones of the series, but it's probably still going to be crap. So we'll be just talking about the first 16 episodes released from 2015 to 2021. And these episodes are The Lone Agent, Miracle Hour, Miracle War, Miracle Moment, Exchange, Trigger Point, The Wrath of the Daleks, The Evil Entity, Beyond the Void, The Cybermen, Confrontation, Agents on New Year, Camouflage of the Crocodile, Attack of the Grinch, The Search for the Key to Sharda, and Lockdown. So without further ado, the absolute worst of the worst of the worst, the absolute worst thing that Mr. Nicholas Payne has ever made, and the literal worst episode of Earth Agents, and that is the second episode, the first one of series 1, Miracle Hour. This episode is nothing! There's nothing to this episode. It's basically set up for the next two. It does nothing. There's very little plot. There's no action. There's nothing characterized. There's nothing. Absolute nothing! It's 5 minutes of absolute boredom! Actually, it's 6 minutes. Or almost 6 minutes. Almost 6 minutes of absolute boredom. The only good thing in this is... no, there isn't anything. 0 out of 10. I hate this episode so much. Number 15. This one's not that much better. It's a slight improvement, but still pretty freaking awful. Episode 3 and the second episode of Series 1, Miracle War. Oh yeah, every episode in Series 1 is called Miracle something. It's always miracle and then one word afterwards. I'll get to the other one in a bit. Miracle War is a slim improvement over Miracle Hour because there's actually something going on. Miracle Hour was basically set up an exposition. This one actually has some fucking action in it, and there's some actual plot progression. But it's also pretty shit plot progression. It's boring as fuck outside the very small bit of action and some small pieces of plot movement. It's pretty shit, but at least it's got something going for it as opposed to Miracle Hour. This is also a 0 out of 10, but it's at least a tiny bit better than the episode that came before, because there's actually something happening. If not, even if it's very brief. Again, it's 5 to 6 minutes of absolute boredom, but with the occasional bit of action or plot progression. Fun fact, this is also the only episode of the series that features only Mr. Nicholas Payne as any character. All the other episodes have at least one other person in a role, but this is the only one with Mr. Nicholas Payne playing all of the roles, and it shows! At least the previous episode had a voiceover from his sister. And the New Year episode at least has a cameo from Blair Harrison at the start. This episode just features Mr. Payne, and it shows. Speaking of Mr. Payne's faults as a creator, moving on to number 14, his first Earth Agents adventure, and the current, at the time of making this, the only feature film out there. The Lone Agent. This movie apparently took almost 2 years to make, and it was released roughly 2 years after it started production. And you can tell this took 2 years to make. 2 years! And Mr. Payne has also admitted that he didn't even have a script for this. He's tried writing one after production began, but it didn't quite work, and the only things that really tie up on a plot-wise thing is just to wrap the story up and maybe give it a bit of a starting point. But for the most part, it's 16 minutes of Agent Nick running around a school, or the Doctor running around the school in some points, and then the last half an hour actually gets stuff going. There's actually stuff going on, and even then, it's still half an hour of running around a school. It's basically 90 minutes of running around a school doing feck all. And it's boring! I take it above the other 2 episodes because there's occasionally a good action scene. Well, I say good, it's a bad action scene, but it's at least more than what we got in the other 2 episodes. Again, 0 out of 10. I put this above Miracle War because at least there's some sort of plot in the last half hour, whilst the Miracle Trilogy basically feels like the Lone Agent, but as a third of what it actually is. Which makes a lot of fucking sense, come to think of it. Speaking of the Miracle Trilogy, number 13. Unlucky number 13 for some, but this one might be a little bit more lucky than the previous ones. And this is the 4th episode and the 3rd and final episode of the first series, Miracle Moment. First of all, I gotta ask, why is this episode, and the Series 1 Omnibus Edition, in 4.3 screening? What's wrong? What happened to 16:9 or full screen? Why is it in 4:3? Fuckers! Anyway, this episode is slightly better than the other 3 because it actually wraps up the Miracle plot. And it's a terrible plot, but at least Mr. Payne actually is able to do something decent. It's badly written, but it's at least more enjoyable to watch than running around the school for 90 minutes. Or exposition and setup. So stuff happens in this episode that's more interesting than in the other 3, but it's still one of the absolute worst of the series. You'd be forgiven for thinking I would give this also a 0 out of 10, but I actually think it wraps it up okay. But I think this episode's okay at 1 out of 10. Just for the fact that it wraps up this awful arc. Yeah, it doesn't even have to do it well, it just wraps it up. Good enough for a 1 out of 10 for me. Number 12. Now, these bottom 4 have been the first 4 episodes. From episode 5 onwards, there is a slight improvement in quality. However, things dip down in the story department yet again when we get to episode 13. And that is Camouflage of the Crocodile. The 2019 Autumn Special! Apparently this was supposed to be the prologue to Series 4, and initially was supposed to be the pre-title scene to Episode 1 of that still-to-be-made series. And it's just kind of been forgotten about. It's just kind of been left there, besides introducing Agent Croc, who I hate because he's played by a black guy. Oh shit! Ignore that! Who I hate because he wears a crocodile onesie and it looks absolutely ridiculous. Good save, hater. Good save. Yeah, he's boring and Nick's boring, and the episode is basically exposition in spots around Anglia Ruskin University's Cambridge campus in Cambridge, and just next door in the just outside the Mill Road Cemetery, and that's it. Exposition in a couple of locations, and that's it. It's supposed to be setting up Series 4, but even if Series 4 comes, it's still gonna be absolute nothing. You're probably still going to Series 4 without having to watch this episode, and you'd still understand what Agent Nick would have to do based on the information from this episode, if that is indeed what's gonna happen in Series 4, if that series even gets fucking made. This episode just feels absolutely lazy on a scripts department. The reason I take this above the final episode of the Miracle Trilogy is that the cinematography and editing is actually decent. Other than that, it's shit. 1 out of 10. Moving on to number 11, another shit scripted episode, but one with a little bit more plot in it this time. Episode 14, the 2019 Christmas Special, Attack of the Grinch. Yeah, this episode has nothing going for it either. There's at least more to this one than Camouflage of the Crocodile, the Miracle Trilogy, and the Lone Agent. And it looks decent, but it's still fucking shit! And worse still, it includes Danny! One of the worst, if not second worst, character in Earth Agents, because he's bisexual. Oh shit, ignore that. I mean, because he's annoying. He's very annoying. Nice move, Mr. Hater. Nice move. Danny is so fucking annoying. And he has more to do in this episode than Lockdown, possibly. I mean, he might be on screen more in Lockdown, but he just stands there and looks like an idiot in that one, for the most parts. Well, this one, he actually is in that one more. Okay, but you could tell how much research I've done with this series, but he's still absolutely fucking annoying! I hate him. But we did a decent cameo from Matt Moyer, so at least we got that. 1 out of 10! Number 10. Another 2019 special, the New Year special this time round, episode 12, and unofficially the Series 3 epilogue. Agents on New Year! This episode is also nothing, but there's some elements of something more than the other episodes. There's some sort of a plot. It's just awful. And once again, Nick is playing every character in this episode, apart from that Blair Harrison cameo at the start, and I don't like Blair Harrison, so bleh to that. This episode is basically Nick Payne playing three characters, running around and fighting each other in his gardens, his front garden and back garden, and that's it. Hardly any plot apart from this guy from the future's come back in time, and it somehow ties in with the awful Doctor Who fan film series Time Agent. But at least Time Agent had decent plots, even in its awful first series. There was something going on in those episodes, apart from maybe the fifth one. But Earth Agents on New Year. Fucking shit! 1 out of 10. The only reason it's got a 1 is that, again, it looks nice. We finally get to some episodes that are not as terrible, but still pretty damn terrible. Number 9. We're back to early Earth Agents now, after a brief period of late Earth Agents. Well, late at this point in time. But now we're back to early Earth Agents with Episode 5 and the 2017 Spring Special, Exchange. Again, this episode has nothing happening! There's nothing happening in this episode. It looks nice, and there's a few good action scenes, but nothing happens that is worth watching it. 2 out of 10. The only reason it's a 2 is because it looks really nice. Really, really nice, but plot-wise, nothing happens. Honestly, I probably would have taken it above the previous episode if it wasn't for the fact this one looks slightly better, and it came earlier. How did that happen? Jesus fucking Christ, this guy is inconsistent. Number 8, we're halfway through this fucking list. This next episode also has nothing happening. It's just Mr. Payne fucking around with his house and garden and stuff. But there's some sort of a plot here. Episode 10 and the second episode of Series 3, The Cybermen. Now, Series 3 is actually pretty consistent on the quality of the episodes. I mean, for this franchise, Series 3 is actually pretty consistent on an okay, but still pretty damn bad level. But the Cybermen era is a pretty damn bad episode. And this is how Mr. Payne celebrates 10 episodes. 10 episodes of his beloved franchise. This is the 10th episode? It's shit! It's just Nick messing around in his house and garden, but 6 times. One as Agent Nick, and then as 5 Cybermen. Ah! Oh. Oh. You know this episode is bad when fellow Universals member Jean-Luc Henderson Harry uploads a clip of this episode on his own YouTube channel and titles it Ascension of the Cybermen in the build-up to the actual Ascension of the Cybermen Series 12 of Doctor Who episode, which is also shit! But not as shit as this episode. Its saving graces is that Nick is actually able to pull off playing 5 Cybermen at once, and we get Phoenix Smith and Connor Chadwick cameos. Oh yeah, this is the episode that features Blofeld for the first time. This episode features Blofeld for the first time. This is our introduction to the character. And it's alright, I guess, but this is our introduction to Blofeld. I mean, he's not going to say he's Blofeld until the next episode when he actually interacts with Mr. Payne for the first time, but this is the audience's introduction to Blofeld. This is the episode that introduces us to Blofeld, one of the supposedly greatest film villains of all time. Oh my god, this episode sucks! 2 out of 10. Number 7. The first episode of Series 2, and the 6th episode overall. And this episode reflects how I'm feeling. Trigger point! Okay, so this episode also has hardly anything going for it. It's Agent Nick fucking around his house, and Jacob C. Rose turns up for some reason. But it does look decent, and Agent Nick going around shooting nothing actually is kind of enjoyable, even if it's very silly, and Jacob C. Rose is actually pretty damn brilliant in the role. I think he might be my favourite actor from this series. Other than that, shit! 3 out of 10. Number 6. The most recent episode of Earth Agents, the 2021 Christmas special, and the 16th episode overall, Lockdown. I recently ranted about this episode on Mr. Payne's own YouTube channel, the main one. So, if you want to hear more of my opinions on that, go and check that video out. But, long story short, this episode again has hardly anything going for it. We're only now being introduced to Agent Neve, Nick's sister, and we're acting like she's always been here. And the Silurians turn up, and they're not even the villains. There's no villain in this episode. They just turn up, and then after a bit of waiting, they agree to team up with the Earth Agents. That's it! And there's something about geology, but it's not interesting, it's not important. The only reason why I put it number 6 instead of lower is that it's one of the best looking episodes of the series. There's some really great cinematography and editing here, but that's as nice as I'm gonna be. That, and I did like Neve Payne's performance, and I thought Agent Neve was better than Eric Soon and Danny, even though she's a woman. Oh shit! Even though she's only just been introduced and we're acting like she's always been here. Nailed it. I did like Cripes though. He was alright. I did enjoy him. Ollie Pajak's probably the second best actor in this series after Jacob C. Rose. 3 out of 10. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 is the second episode of Series 2 and the 7th episode overall. And I would have said it's actually kind of enjoyable because it does have some enjoyable moments, but there's a huge factor preventing me from actually enjoying this episode. The Wrath of the Daleks. As said, this episode is actually kind of enjoyable. Nick does run around his house shooting Daleks, but the Dalek shooting scene was actually kind of fun. What tears this episode down is Joe! The worst character in Earth Agents. He is terrible! Terribly written, he's terribly acted, and he's just pointless. He's basically just there to annoy Agent Nick, help him fight the Daleks, and then die! He fucking dies in one episode. One! You would think this guy would have become the original Danny. Well, I kind of guess he is, but he's more like a prototype, except more stupid and annoying. And even more gay/bisexual. Shit. I mean, even more. Stupid and annoying again. He's extra stupid and annoying. But Nick Payne can actually write the Daleks better than Chris Chibnall and Stephen Moffat. He's also better at writing the Cybermen than either of them as well. I would have given this episode a 4 out of 10 because it's actually slightly enjoyable, but I can't enjoy it all the way because of Joe! So 3 out of 10. Oh, and that scene where Joe tries to climb into bed with Nick. I'm totally with Agent Nick in that scene. I'm totally on his side. Moving on to number 4. Fucking finally, top 4. This episode is alright, but it's still pretty bad. The first episode of Series 3, and the ninth? Yeah, ninth. The 9th episode overall, Beyond the Void. Like with Lockdown, which I explained in my rant about that on the Nicholas Payne main channel, he just wanted to use this title as opposed to using something like Mystery Man or something. So Beyond the Void it is, and we just get this random assassin guy trying to assassinate Mr. Payne in his house. However, there is actually some sort of enjoyability in this episode, and there's a bit of plot here, and Ollie Pajak is actually pretty good as this character. He's not as good as Cripes, but he's probably his second best character. And it does kind of kickstart the start of Tofo's direct involvement with the character, but other than that, it's bad. It's pretty bad. It does look pretty nice though, but it's pretty bad. 4 out of 10. Number 3. The 3rd and final episode of Series 2, and the 8th episode overall. And this one is also pretty bad, but looks pretty good, and there's some fun moments in there. The Evil Entity. You know this episode is bad when Jean-Luc Harry and Will Maddox give it edits that make it look even more silly and stupid, because this episode is really silly. The climax alone is W2TF, and that's before it got re-edited and parodied and elsewhere. It's so stupid. It was begging to be memed, even more so than the Cyberman episode. The plot of this episode sees the evil entity from the lone agent come back to try and fuck around with Nick, and fucks around with General Presence. So there's actually a bit of a plot in this one. There's actually a plot, and there's actual fucking stakes in this episode, and it's actually a little bit fun. But like I said, that climax is so stupid and so silly, and it's basically just there to set up the Void, which is going to play a larger role in Series 3. It's dumb. We don't even know that much about the evil entity. He showed up in the film, and he shows up in this episode and at the end of the previous one. And, yeah, we don't even know that much about him. He's supposedly Nick's arch nemesis, pre-Blofeld. And then they set up the sister to be the nemesis for the next series, and then they don't really do that much with her until the last episode. More on that later, but last episode of that series, I mean. This episode it also looks alright. It looks decent, and there is some sort of a plot, but it's still bad! Or at the very least, bad side of mediocre. 4 out of 10! Okay, finally we now come to the 2 episodes I actually kinda like in this one. I might have said the last one as well, if it wasn't for that climax. So moving on to number 2. This one's probably objectively the best episode. Well, if you can say objectively best. And that is the 15th episode of the series and the 2020 Christmas special. The Search for the Key to Sharda. This one again sees Agent Nick and Agent fucking Croc running around Anglia Ruskin University, but this time there's actually a fucking plot to it. Agent Nick and Agent Croc have to stop these villains from stealing the book to Sharda, which for some reason is now Anglia Ruskin University instead of with Professor Chronotis. But whatever. Agent Nick and Agent Croc chase around these villains and basically try to stop them finding this book, and that's the plot. There's a little bit of stakes, not so much as evil entity, but there's something going on, and the five villains are pretty fun. Bathing Grimes especially, played by Thomas Elgie, he's really fun. He's probably the third best actor in this series, and then his henchmen and henchwomen are kind of fun and enjoyable. Oh shit, I said something positive about women. Although, what's weird is that Agent Croc eats all five of them once they've been defeated. Well, actually, he eats them one at a time, but once each individual has been stopped by either Nick or him, then he eats them. What the fuck? I mean, I thought he was just a guy dressed up as a crocodile. I didn't think it was an actual fucking crocodile, or even a cannibal, so... What the fuck, Nick? What the fuck? And that's how the villain's defeated. He's eaten. He gets shot and he's eaten. And that's how we're ending this episode. Jesus fucking Christ. Douglas Adams would have a heart attack if he was still alive. Also, what is it with those fucking screen flashes? Editing issue, my bottom. Ugh. But outside of those, it is probably the best looking episode of the series. But it's not the best episode, in my personal opinion, or even the least worst episode, I should say. 5 out of 10. And now, finally, number 1, I can't even call it the best episode, the least worst episode of Earth Agents, this absolutely fucking abysmal series, is episode 11, or the third and final episode of Series 3, Confrontation. This episode is, bar the movie, the longest episode of the series. It's 38 minutes, 40 including the trailer. But yet, there's some sort of a plot in there, there's some enjoyable moments, there's some good action. The acting's pretty decent, and it looks pretty decent, and it's a decently structured episode, and it deals with the whole TOFO stuff that Series 3 was building, and sets it up for Series 4. In fact, it's a better setup for the yet-to-be-produced Series 4 than Camouflage of the Crocodile was. And that's really about it. So that's as far as I'm going to go, because it's the least worst episode, but I'm still not going to say it's good. I'd say it's mediocre at best. 5 out of 10. So a quick roundup of the ranking before we finish up. Number 16 is Miracle Hour. Number 15, Miracle War. Number 14, The Lone Agent. Number 13, Miracle Moment. Number 12, Camouflage of the Crocodile. Number 11, Attack of the Grinch. Number 10, Agents of New Year. Number 9, Exchange. Number 8, The Cybermen. Number 7, Trigger Point. Number 6, Lockdown. Number 5, The Wrath of the Daleks. Number 4, Beyond the Void. Number 3, The Evil Entity. Number 2, The Search for the Key to Sharda. And number 1, Confrontation. And that's it. That's my ranking of this abysmal series. God, what an abysmal series. I hope A Christmas Carol for Ebenezer Scrooge, the upcoming 17th episode, is at least mediocre, because I don't think it's going to be good, but if it's anything as the quality of some of the earlier episodes, it's going to be absolute piss. And I really, really wish that after that, Nick would just make Series 4 and fucking finish this episode with 20 episodes and leave it there. That's it. One more series of 3 episodes after Scrooge, and then leave it, abandon it, forget about it, just wrap it up. Just don't make any more. Just end it already, buddy. End it, and then leave it. It's shit. It's absolute shit. I hated almost every single fucking second of this series. The occasional good moments here and there in some of the episodes, but very far and few between. Very little that I liked, or at least found not bad, but most of it was shit. And that's all I've got to say on this series. Thank you for watching this video. Your usual Universal members will be back soon enough to do something else with you, I presume. Until then... Hey, what do you think you're doing? Hater out! Oh shit, not again. Hey guys, a quick encoder at the end of this video. Basically, the character of the hater is a character I created for the Universals and Twoniversals videos, where he would be a caricature of not my doctor, haters, trolls, etc. that you'll find on the internet. And basically, in this video, he's just ranting about my personal Earth Agents internet series, which did start off as a Doctor Who fan film series, but has grown and evolved to now include lots of other things as well. So basically, the hater was just doing a ranking of the 16 episodes that are currently available to watch now on my main channel, if you would like to go and watch them, and ranting about them because he's a hater and he doesn't like them. Well, for the most parts. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't, sorry. I hope this encoder does help explain the joke if you didn't understand it, and kind of put you at ease a bit more. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Me and the other Universals members will see you guys next time for our regularly usual Universals and Twoniversal stuff. Until then, thank you for watching. Goodbye.